Would you be surprised if I told you that muscle did more than make you look cool naked? Yeah. And get this, it was around way before we even invented clothes. Wild, right? But not as wild as its true function. You might want to get yourself some protein for this one. Just saying. Yo! What is up? Welcome back to another week of How to Health. My name is Kevin. I run liftinbalance.com, where we take aim at all things health and longevity and do it in an odd, weird, interesting, and highly sarcastic way. Today, we are exploring how one of the best ways to stave off disease, morbidity, and mortality is by building and preserving the oh so cherished tissue, many times for the wrong reason, muscle. Highlighting the many non-simply looking cool in the mirror ways which it influences our metabolism, biochemistry, and physiological state. And in doing so, the risk and prevalence of one of the most common metabolic diseases plaguing us intelligent walking apes today. Type 2 diabetes. Quite the agenda. I know. So we'll look at some new data around that and finish up talking about what you need to do in order to preserve this magical tissue for the long run. Because if you didn't already know, it follows strict, if you don't use it, you will lose it, principles, making keeping it a ever-going pursuit, just like all the other most rewarding things in life. So let's begin by analyzing the secret bio-celebrity life of our muscle. You know, actually sounds like a pretty good show. Production team, add it to the trademark list. And cut this last part. This tissue has long been known for facilitating the jamming out of your favorite tune in front of the bathroom mirror, otherwise known as facilitating movement. But surprisingly not surprising, it has many other biological tricks up its sleeve, as it not only supports the ever important movement, posture, joint stability, and heat production, but also happens to hold the privilege of being one of the most metabolically active tissues that we have. Because doing all that stuff we just talked about at the scale of a holistic organism for a day, week, year, life takes energy. So these fibers come naturally packed with mitochondria, or energy-producing organelles within our cells that, as we talk about here, may be the secret modulator of health and disease that no one knows about. But that's a topic for that video. Here is where things begin to get interesting. This high-energy business makes muscle a key consumer and storer of glucose, or one of the primary fuel substrates of life. And due to this high demand, muscle even stores this glucose in-house to keep it close as a substrate called glycogen, aka stored glucose. And as a byproduct of this energy paradigm, more muscle means the body is more efficient at clearing glucose from the bloodstream, which we'll get to the significance of in just a minute. Another overlooked and disregarded function of this fibrous tissue is its key signaling role for cellular activity throughout the body. Yes, just like the ravens in Game of Thrones. Little faster. You see, when we engage in badonkadonking, my go-to term for intentional movement, a series of bioactive compounds get released, many from skeletal muscle, which ignite an acute inflammatory fire that triggers cellular processes such as autophagy, the self-recycling of weak, damaged, mutated, potentially harmful cells, mitophagy, the recycling of leaky, damaged mitochondria, and apoptosis, or the programmed cell death of dysfunctional cellular actors, all while signaling the upregulation of processes such as mitochondria biogenesis, or the creation of new, healthy, efficient mitochondria, which I'll refer you to that previous mentioned video for the lowdown on why that's such a good thing, and completing this biochemical extravaganza by eliciting an even more powerful anti-inflammatory response which sticks around for hours, helping fight longevity liability numero uno, low-dose chronic inflammation. And it don't stop there. Adding to this functional magic, if you want strong bones, which you do, muscle is a must. Because one of the best strengthening factors for greater bone density is the force in which muscle pulls against the bone, with the more muscle you have driving a stronger adaptive response from the bone, making it one of the best osteoporosis defense mechanisms on the planet. Now, as we know, just because we're biologically capable doesn't mean things magically happen. In fact, most people go through life never reaping the full benefits of this tissue's health and longevity powers. And here's why. One of the biggest risks of death we modern humans face as we accumulate chronological years on this beautiful floating rock is becoming physically weak and feeble, immobile, not being able to do one simple task like walking up the stairs without risk for serious injury. This is a condition known as Sarcopenia, or the natural deterioration of muscle mass as we age, a topic we have a full in-depth breakdown on here. As this acceleration of muscle loss happens, typically starting slowly in one's 30s, it not only impairs our physical capabilities, but also, as we've just seen, our biochemistry. Simply put, it is highly likely that the lack of muscle and musculoskeletal supporting tissue, like joints, ligaments, and cartilage, is driving the body to physically deteriorate much faster than it needs to. And in doing so, setting off a cascade of cellular and metabolic signaling over the span of decades that have the average person spending 20% of their lives, typically the end, in a state of morbidity or state of being diseased. Yeah, not cool. And it sneaks up on you, often starting as some sort of silent metabolic dysfunction, especially when mixed with other societal health norms such as an ultra-processed diet and chronic sleep deprivation, with the first usual sign being insulin resistance, the precursor of one of the fastest growing diseases on the planet and the literal essence of cellular dysfunction, type 2 diabetes. Let's talk about why this connection is especially relevant here. Type 2 diabetes is a condition where key tissue types such as the liver's hepatocytes and skeletal muscles myocytes become desensitized to the energy regulating hormone insulin, the hormone which acts as the key to open up the cellular doors for glucose uptake. This dysfunction, along with suboptimal leads to chronically elevated levels of serum glucose, which triggers a downstream flurry of inflammation-inducing, systemically damaging effects over time, to the point where it's hypothesized to be a top accelerator of many other diseases. We're talking cardiovascular disease, hypertension, obesity, cancer, neurodegeneration, and all of their nefarious friends. So yeah, not cool for biological school, and something we want to avoid if possible. However, for a laundry list of lifestyle reasons, this seems to be a difficult task, as the global prevalence of diabetes continues to increase rapidly, with over 530 million people diagnosed worldwide in 2021, a number which is projected to increase to nearly 800 million by 2045, inching towards 10% of the population, which is wild. However, this seems to be something that more muscle helps tame, as it acts as a binding location for insulin and a sink for glucose, improving one's glucose tolerance and insulin sensitivity throughout the body, putting one's pretty cool meat suit in a better position to stay metabolically efficient. But just like anything else, this too comes with a cost, because the only true way to maintain and grow muscle mass is by putting yourself through some good hormetic stress and using it. As we mentioned earlier, this tissue follows a strict use it or lose it policy, and that means exercise, primarily some form that causes a short-term grimace or two. And if you were wondering how this muscle diabetes dynamic plays out in a population, let me turn your attention to this new study. which looked into the role and association of muscle mass with the prevalence of the disease. To do this, researchers tracked over 1,200 adults with no signs of the disease for 2 to 3 years. They measured their muscle mass index, defined as the percentage of total muscle mass at baseline, to compare to follow-up examinations, finding that after a median follow-up time of 2 years, 142 participants developed the disease. But was there an association? Short answer, yes. The researchers observed a clear inverse association between skeletal muscle mass and the risk of diabetes in participants with impaired glucose regulation. However, this was not the case in those participants with normal glucose tolerance. Interesting. And through further analysis, they found that the 2-year change in skeletal muscle mass was also inversely associated with the incidence of diabetes throughout the population, making the case that those "I lift things up and put them down" people are onto something. So how can we put our pretty cool meat suit in the best possible position to look cool naked? I mean, maintain muscle mass for the long run. Yeah, sorry about that. Let's talk about it. When it comes to muscle, there is no getting around the fact that preventing it from deteriorating takes work. Hate to break it to you. However, this work can be much easier with a strategy. And the good news is, it's never too late to start, as research in older adults has displayed that we have the uncanny ability to build and maintain muscle mass following a specified program well into our later years of life, which is effing awesome. However, as we know, prevention is always a more optimal strategy than reversal. Of course. Especially knowing that we're tricked into thinking that our muscle will just stick around forever. Let me explain. Because for the first 25 years or so of life, we are so hopped up on the biological growth factors of maturing, maintaining muscle mass is a pre-programmed byproduct. It just happens, automatically, easy, all while dangerously preconditioning us to believe this will be the case forever. But as we discussed earlier, it ain't. And as the situation begins to change and we wander into our 30s, magical years, the slow deterioration of muscle mass begins, gaining steam and accelerating in our 50s, 60s, and beyond. That is, unless you do something about it, aka give your muscles a reason, a need to stick around. And movement with a side of strength is the perfect way to do it. 120 minutes of moderate exercise per week, with half of that being focused on some type of strength or functional training, is ideal. And this doesn't necessarily mean living in the gym or going in the gym at all. This can be bodyweight activities such as squats, push-ups, lunges, and a vast array of different calisthenic options. Yoga, Pilates, boot camps, and interpretive dancing are all great too. Hell, good old-fashioned yard work can even fit the bill. Any movement is good movement. And if you're interested in how I personally approach the task, I cover my current training for longevity routine here. Another piece of good news here is research indicates that the less muscle you have, the faster you tend to grow it, eventually leaving us all with the lifelong fun of trying to keep it. I could see you having fun back there. Another critical component of this endeavor is providing your body with the biological building blocks to maintain this magical tissue. And that's where protein comes in. It is a bottleneck for the biological ability to truly maintain and grow muscle, as we cover in this deep dive here. And research indicates 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight is optimal to complete this task in adulthood, meaning a 180-pound individual should consume between 140 and 150 grams of protein per day. No easy task when not paying attention. And to maximize the growth pathways which trigger muscle protein synthesis, a minimum of 30 grams of protein per meal should be consumed, especially at breakfast, because the body is likely in a catabolic state after overnight fasting, meaning it's likely breaking down protein for energy. So, kicking off your day with a meal containing 30 plus grams of protein is a habit worth considering. I personally like to focus my first and last meals being super high in it. And if you want a hack to increase its utilization, try adding a post-meal activity snack to your routine. This is a light bout of movement as discussed here, which has been shown to improve protein uptake into the muscle and overall muscle protein synthesis. We're talking a simple 5-minute session of walking, stretching, yoga, whatever. Low stress, high impact stuff that can truly make a cellular difference. Because the reality is, when it comes down to it, the loss of muscle mass is one of the biggest longevity liabilities that we intelligent walking apes face. But it's also something which we very much have control over. So make the intentional choice to not leave it to chance. The beautiful thing is, you don't have to wait to your 90s to reap all of the benefits of building and maintaining muscle mass. They're immediate. Right here, right now stuff. Putting your pretty cool meat suit in a better cellular, metabolic, and physiological position to operate efficiently. And thus you in a better position to feel effing awesome more days than not. And that's what it's all about, right? Oh, and looking cool naked. It'll do that too. Just saying.